Hello, this is Tip Top Gaming here today talking about another MTG Arena Planecation. Today we're talking about Dominaria Standard Shakeup. In a previous video where I went over the lands, I talked about how I thought Dominaria was going to be a plane that we would be visiting. However, if you saw that video, I said that it was going to be the A lands, the ones with the little A in the corner, because we already had Dominaria lands in Standard, and there's never been a set named another set based around, there's been sets based around Dominaria, but there haven't been the main name of the set. But we actually ended up with these lands, which I thought were not as great. I'm going to stop talking about lands because you guys can look at these yourself. What's more interesting, of course, is the banned list. Now, why don't I go through all of them? Benelish Marshal, History of Benalia, Curious Obsession, Brynborn Cutthroat, Soaring Imperious Bloodlord, Arclight Phoenix, Goblin Chain Whirler, Light Up the Stage, Rekindling Phoenix, Runaway Steamkin, Nissa Who Shakes the World, Wild Growth Walker, Field of the Dead, Teferi Hero of Dominaria, Teferi Time Raveler, Thought Erasure, Feather the Redeemed, Hydroid Crisis, and Risen Reef. Now, I just spurted at you a bunch of cards. You may not know what all these cards are, and that's why you probably saw them flashing up on screen. Cool new editing trick. But we're actually going to, so I'm going to actually swap over, and I'm going to look at the top meta decks now, and we're going to see which ones are the least affected and why I think those ones are going to be the most popular. Overall, I think that it's pretty clear, and you're going to see just which, this card's being crossed out here, so this whole deck becomes useless. Why don't we head over and do that right now? Alrighty, so now let's take a look at all the decks. I've compiled them here, and then I've crossed off which cards are not allowed. So why don't we start with the standard Red Rush deck. By the way, these meta decks are according to MTG Goldfish. I understand that it shows a, sample of it, so these are not the only versions of this deck, and I'm sure there are lots of changes you could make to avoid these, but I'm just going to go over what it says, if the standard deck is. Yeah, on average, this will be the deck. So why don't we take a look at this? So the key things that are part of this, the Red Rush deck and what really fuels it are things such as Experimental Frenzy, which basically ignores card draw, Runaway Steamkin, which allows for combos, creating more and more mana, Goblin Chain Whirler, which eliminates anything token-based, and Light Up the Stage, which is card draw, which if you notice, those are some of the main ones. Obviously, stuff like Fanatical Firebrand, Giatu Lava Runner, and Viashino Pyromancer are cool and all, but they're not enough to fuel a deck. Now, I do think Red could be viable. I don't think they're going to be the best due to many of their key cards being removed. So, why don't we get into the next one? Next, we have a, Risen Reef type of deck. So, the removed cards here are Hydroid Crisis, which, as you can tell by the price range, I almost took those out, but I thought, that'd be a good indication of which cards in the deck are really the powerful ones. Hydroid Crisis, Risen Reef, now it's a little lower, but that's because it's an uncommon, Teferi and Nissa, and those are the cards. Now, obviously, Planeswalkers, you're going to notice a theme. Most of the Planeswalkers in these decks are banned. I wonder if that says anything about the game and how Planeswalkers, kind of are a major part of it. I get that Planeswalkers are a big part of the story, but they almost dictate gameplay a little bit too much and are in almost every deck. Even the Red Rush deck had one. Either way, I think this deck is not going to work very well because it's centered around stuff like Risen Reef and Hydroid Crisis. Next, we have Esper Tempo. Now, this, of course, removes the Teferis and the Thought Erasures, which I think is going to end up killing this deck. I think Esper Control would be more likely to survive using Liliana as a win con, because when you really look at an Esper Control based deck, you'd be losing to both Teferis and Thought Erasure as well. Now, of course, this deck list would look a little bit different, but overall, you could probably do it with Ugins and Lilianas and all that. So I think Esper has a high chance. Esper Control, not Esper Tempo. Esper Control has a high chance of being able to do something in this event. Esper Tempo, I think, is dead. Next, we have a Bant deck. And this one, of course, has Hydroid Crisis and Teferi Time Raveler. Those are the two banned cards, and if you notice anything about it, those are, their main cards. Scape Shift, and, also, one thing that's not on here, is Field of the Dead is also banned. That one, I kind of forgot about being banned, because it was added, actually, afterwards. So, there you go. Field of the Dead is also banned, which the whole point of this deck is to mix Escape Shift with Field of the Dead to create lots of zombies and win the game. So I think this deck is also very dead. Then we have Vampires, which you'll notice has one card missing. Sorin, Imperious Bloodlord. I think that this deck has a high chance of surviving. While Sorin is a key part, because he can put just vampires right on the field. The most expensive vampire is a 5 cost that benefits from you having lots of little vampires, so it's not that great to get out early. So I guess the best payoff here is Sanctum Seeker, which is only 4 mana, which is 1 more than Sorin. So while I think, and he does, of course, he has removal, he has death touch, he's lifelink, he has a lot of stuff, but I think this deck has a chance to survive. However, I think there is one deck that is going to reign supreme over all of them, and that is Jund Dinos. Jund Dinos, according to MTG Goldfish, has no cards that are banned. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I think that this deck, and it's actually, I think it's like the 4th most popular deck in the metagame, and it doesn't have anything banned from it. Not even just a little card that isn't maybe a big part, just nothing. So I think this deck is going to reign supreme, and I think you're gonna run into it a lot. But also I don't, because I've been making these predictions every video, and of course this is where my prediction comes in. I think that Jund Dinosaurs is going to be one of the more powerful decks, maybe next to Simic Flash, because there are 1 or 2 things banned from that deck, but that deck is very powerful, so I think that one could endure too. I think that this deck is going to go far, because even when you're taking out one card, I'm just going to take out this one card, that card can be catastrophic. One card is the reason why certain decks are where they're at. For instance, Risen Reef. Take out that one card, and that deck was not meta before Risen Reef. And so you can really see how just 1 or 2 cards taken away can really change up a deck. So, or weaken it severely, even if it's just 1 card. So when you have a deck that is unaffected by these changes, I think this is going to be the most powerful deck. I hope people aren't looking like, oh, what's the most powerful deck I can build? I hope they're looking at what's the most fun deck I can build, because I think that's the point of it. But I think this event is going to end up not being super great, because people like the Guild event battle, or I like the Guild event battle. They're just going to find the most powerful deck and use that. They're not going to use a variety. I know people did use a variety, but you're going to run into those players who are just like, haha, I want to win quickly and get this over with. And so yeah, and to beat this deck, it's a creature-based deck, but all the control decks kind of got nerfed. So, if you really want it, run a lot of removal, and then, I don't know, like removal or death touch, or, something along that line might be able to save you, but overall, I think this deck is going to do well. Something like lots of removal and death touch is going to be useful against it. And yeah, you gotta just make sure you control their side of the board in order to win. So I think a form of Esper control might be the best against this deck. Alrighty, so that is actually it for this event. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and all the new effects and all that. If you guys liked this video, please hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.